Okay, guys, we're getting ready to talk about the E, which is engage and eat. I'm going to talk a little bit about the engagement first and what we mean by engage. When Jesus was modeling for his disciples throughout Galilee, he talked about them having ears to hear, and he also talked about them opening their eyes to see that the fields all around them were white to harvest, basically just communicating with them. They're receptive people all around you. You have to engage them. You have to do as Jesus did with the woman at the well and begin to listen, speak words over her, and share and be willing to go places maybe many others may be unwilling to go. So when we talk about engage, I want to talk about at the individual level and the community group level. When we talk about you personally, each individual in the group, we have a responsibility, a ministry to engage every people, passion, and place in our lives. And so we have a relational map or a ministry map. It's a way that we can engage people. And so one of the things we like to do is we can put my name, Guy, at the center and think about the people I know all around me, like BJ. And BJ is connected to other people. Rory, Leah, these are his kids. And then they're connected to others. And so as we begin to write out this map and think about who that person around us may know, what we are doing is laying out a vision for generations. Think if Guy engages BJ, BJ engages Laura and Rory, and let's say he's got another friend that he likes that's Joe, that he's got a relationship with, and he comes to Christ, then Joe comes to Christ, and then all these others begin to come to Christ as well, that I may not know their name, but as I get to know BJ and he's sharing with me about Joe, we see generations of possible disciples that are coming to Christ and opportunities to share, and certainly people to pray for, because that's the main thing that we're talking about here when we talk about begin with prayer, love and listen, and then with this engagement map, we want to pray for these people, but we also want to look for opportunities to share our story and his story with them, and that's coming more later. So let's say BJ, then we've got Michael, okay? And Michael has Sarah, his wife, and then he has his children. Let's say I don't know his children's name, so I want to put a question mark there. But the idea is the more I get to know Mike and the more I listen to him and love him, I get to know the names of his kids as well. And so this is an opportunity to make sure that we are listening to people, that we have our eyes open to the harvest field. What about the things that I love to do? I love to go to the gym. And so one of the questions if I need to ask myself, and if someone was coaching me on how to do this map, hopefully they'd be asking me, Guy, who do you know at the gym? And be asking me questions about, do you take the time to open your eyes to pray for these people and begin to engage them? If I don't, then one of the things I would hope that I would do is begin to pray and begin to ask people, hey, what's your name? And begin to pray for them by name. Look for opportunities to serve them and to share my story and his story with them. Now, I happen to, at the gym, have a lot of guys I play racquetball with. John and his wife, Deb, and then he's got kids, JT. And so do I know if John knows the good news? Am I praying for John and building a relationship with him? So I'm beginning to build out names, relationships, and also this generation of connections. What other passions or places do we have? I like to go to the same restaurant over and over again. Like I go to a restaurant mod with my mother, and we share with a gal that's a manager there named Kat. And so I intentionally go to this restaurant over and over again. I also meet with a group of leaders at the Corner Bakery. And so at the Corner Bakery, there are two employees, one named Tammy and one named Miguel, that I am consistently praying for and also looking for opportunities to share with them. And of course, there are connections that Tammy has with others that I don't know yet who they are. But this is a map of how generations of the gospel, and hopefully We even see leaders in churches developed out of a map like this. So it's based upon people, passions, and place. So one of the things you want to do is brainstorm this. Think about as many people as you possibly can that you know. Think about the passions that you have. If it's working out, it could be the arts, it could be marketplace. Think about the passions and think about the places that you regularly go and begin to talk in your community groups. Are we intentional about engaging those places? Do we have our ears listening and open to listening? Do we have our eyes open to seeing? And then we want to certainly have our mouths open for sharing and our hands and our feet for serving. So this is a key map to get us just thinking about how we can engage people at the individual level. And that's really important. One of the things we want to do is assume that everybody is lost until we really know that they are found. Even in our family at Woods Edge, our church family, there are a lot of people we may sit next to in a pew that may not know the Lord, but we assume just because they're sitting there, they do. And so what we want to do is begin to listen, love, pray, and engage people in conversation, in prayer, and be willing to share my story and his story with them. So this is a way to draw out a ministry map, a relational map, and this thing can just carry on. Try to get 25 to 40 names on this. And this is just one example, and you could just carry this out as big as you possibly wanted to. This is a great thing to do in community groups and for you to do as an individual. So this is the first part of the engagement strategy. Is the individual piece. Okay, so we've been talking about engagement, and I just want to talk about how we can have some events with intent. Now, we need to remember, don't forget that our engagement needs to be simple and relational. Simple things grow, simple things multiply. So we need to do this in the context of relationship, but there are also great events that we can use that if we will be intentional in those events, we will see opportunities for the kingdom to advance, for Jesus to be shared, for his love to be shown to those around us. Think about Jesus at the wedding, where he basically engaged this community, lifted the head of the family that was throwing the wedding because they were going to be shamed because they ran out of wine. And Jesus performs his first miracle and demonstrates the intentional love of the Father. So we want to have events with intents. I'm going to give you just a few ideas that we've used. One of the things we love are Levi parties. Remember how Jesus told Levi, hey, come, follow me. And he followed him and said, hey, we're going to have a party. I'm going to your house and we're going to have a party. And Levi invited all of his friends. And if you know Levi's background, he eventually became Matthew, and Levi was a tax collector. Tax collectors weren't real favored during that time, and they had a lot of sinful friends. And so Jesus said, we're going to have a party at your house. And if you also remember, he did the same thing with Zacchaeus in Luke 19, 1 through 10. So learning how to throw parties with intentional thought about praying for people, engaging new relationships is a real simple way. You see down here block parties. We've utilized block parties. Hip Hop Hope is an event with intent that we've worked with hip hop culture and background, where we've done like a 50-minute to an hour long just kind of block party where we threw a party, had music, and then either ate before or afterwards, then had a little hour time of presenting gospel, fun and games, just really a good way of doing a block party in hip hop culture. So Hip Hop Hope, we've done block parties and we've joined block parties. That's something too that many of our neighborhoods do, and it's something that you and your community group can join in on. So don't forget about that. Remember, Pentecost was a festival. So seize holidays. Kelly and I have done all kinds of things throughout the years, whether it was Halloween, Easter, Christmas, where we've used creative ideas and strategies to share with our neighbors, serve our neighbors, and get the good news of Jesus Christ out to our neighbors. So don't forget about holidays, and Kelly's going to share later some simple tools that we've used around some of those holidays to begin to engage our neighbors and develop friendships and relationships with the purpose of sharing Christ and serving them. Also, dinner eights. Dinner eights, I don't know if you're familiar with that, where like 8 people rotate, couples rotate. something like that, where you're sharing meals together and rotating around from house to house. I know during this COVID season, we may not be able to do that, but I still believe that is a great strategy. Meals. When we planted our first church in 1997, one of the things I did was pull my grill from the backyard around to the driveway and began to grill and started inviting our neighbors down to eat with us and share with us. We played games in the street with our children. We began to develop relationships, and in time, we baptized about 5 neighbors. We started a community group in our neighborhood along that street, and then those neighbors eventually became community group leaders, and we multiplied out from there. So meals is real important. Thinking relationally, even while we're doing these events, is real important too. So events with intent is another great way to engage people.
Okay, everyone, we're going to continue with the letter E for engage, and I'm going to cover the part about hospitality. So let's start with asking the question, how many times have you heard someone say, I don't have the gift of hospitality? Well, I don't know about you, but I've heard many people say that. And I think the focus is mostly on opening your home, so people get a little afraid by that. So we're going to talk about, what does hospitality really mean? We're going to focus on the why, which is more valuable than the what. So we're going to be focusing on the why of hospitality. So what is hospitality? Hospitality is a combination of 2 words, love and stranger. So I'd like to read a little bit to you about what that means. Do you know that literally hospitality is the love of stranger? This is a powerful description of the gospel. When we were strangers and aliens, God took us in. When we were without a home and a family, God brought us into His. When we were without hope in the world, God adopted us as His children. That is the love of a stranger. So let's go through a few scriptures that give examples of how we can welcome strangers and outsiders. Matthew 25:35 says, For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Hebrews 13:2 says, Don't neglect to show hospitality. By doing this, some have welcomed angels as guests without knowing it. Because God has shown us hospitality through the gift of His Son, Jesus Christ, we are to mirror that through our love for one another. The best way we can mirror that love, and the best place to exemplify this, is in the community group. So we're going to be talking next about why hospitality. In Romans 12:9 through 15, it says, Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer, share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse, rejoice with those who rejoice, and mourn with those who mourn. So Romans 12:9 through 15 says a lot. Basically, this is saying that Christ was a perfect example of hospitality, and that every Christ follower should pursue hospitality. So that completely destroys the idea that hospitality is only for those who have a gift of hospitality. Hospitality is more than opening our home. It is an attitude, a reflection that we give to other people of who Jesus is. So a culture of hospitality is about our attitude and our actions, and should be pursued by all Christ followers. Jesus loved deeply. He honored extravagantly. He remained patient always. We are commanded to do the same. 1 Peter 4:9 says, Be hospitable without complaining. I'd like to tell you just a little story about me when we first started having people to our house. We did not have very much money when we first got married, and I always was concerned about how our house looked. Did we have enough nice things? Focused on our home and all the details of it. Our house was certainly clean and kept together, but I was worried about that, other things that were unimportant. And when people were there, I complained because I was worried about how much they might be eating or drinking, because I was worried it was going to hurt the money that we had in our budget. There's a verse in Proverbs that basically says that when you have people at your table to eat, that you should not be thinking about how much it costs for you to give this to them and to serve them. You should serve with an open hand and an open heart. That is something that we really have to work on. At least I did. I had to work on complaining, and really now serving and being hospitable has become a joy.